Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Cue the Chat podcast. My name is Fionn, and on today's episode, we are going to be having a look at the semi-finals and final of the Welsh Open. We are going to be having a look ahead to the World Open that's starting next Sunday. We are going to be having a look at Martin Gould. Where has Martin Gould gone? We're going to be figuring that out on today's episode, and we also have an email in from Brian McGovern. So without further ado, we are going to be getting into the episode now. The Welsh Open, the semi-finals, Mark Selby against Luca Bressel. I saw a lot more of that game than the Stephen Maguire against Ali Carter game. I was inside in the snooker club for this one. Luca Bressel, awful break off in that first frame. We're wondering what was going on. Mark Selby then clears off with a century, and then Luca Bressel goes over and talks to the referee. Then the referee goes over and talks to Mark Selby. Then Luca Bressel's dad comes down and speaks to Luca, and then Luca and Mark speak to each other. So it turned out that Luca Bressel had a migraine and he couldn't actually see what was going on, which was why he had such a poor break-off shot. So they went off for about 20 minutes, I think, was how long they went off for. Then I think it was 2-2 at the interval, or was it 3-1? No, I'm pretty sure it was 2-2. And then Mark Selby kind of took off then after that. And then he won that one 6-3. That one was over about 5 o'clock. So my prediction that it was going to take all day wasn't quite there, but they certainly did take their time. But of course there was that 20 minutes, half an hour where there was no play. And Stephen Maguire, Ali Carter, the match of the hotheads. Stephen Maguire won that one 6-4. There was a good bit of table bashing, rest thwacking. Was it Ali McManus didn't like the way that Ali Carter put the rest back under the table? I wouldn't care too much about that, to be honest. But 6-4 to Maguire. And then Mark Selby, 9-6 winner over Steve Maguire. It was nip and tuck, to be fair. There was just it was kind of 1-1, then 2-2, then 3-3, then 4-4. That kind of a match. But there was just a couple of key moments where Selby won 2 in a row. Essentially, was what happened. There was no real breakaway where it went 4-0 and then it came back to 4-4, and nothing like that. It was close throughout. There was just too many instances where Mark Selby won 2 on the trot, and that was kind of where it was lost. Maguire taking on quite a few pots that, there'd been long safety bouts, and then he'd just take one on. I heard Alan McManus say that he'd need to take on a few, basically that he'd need to take on the shots because he wouldn't win in safety battles. To a certain extent I agree with that, but there was quite a few moments where I suppose he could have played a little bit more safety, where he just went for it. I just thought there was a couple of shots where he would have been better off playing a safety shot. Now there was one main controversial moment, and that was the moment where the black didn't go in. Mark Selby missed a black off the spot. A lot of people thought that the pundits thought that it rolled off. I certainly didn't think it was going in. Well, when I was watching it live, I thought it might drop, but looking back at it, didn't look to roll up really. It was fairly outside the pocket for most of it. So Mark Selby won that one 9-6, winning his second Welsh Open title and his 24th ranking title in total, his second of this season, and his third overall title after he took the Championship League a couple of weeks ago. So that's his third title of the season. Now, I covered most of the Welsh Open in the last podcast, so There's not much more to say other than it was a great, a great tournament. I mean, if the way that it was set up in terms of the broadcasts was a bit weird. So I'll kind of talk you through it, because BBC Wales were the host broadcasters, and uh, they had a different camera angle to everyone else from the world feed and everyone. Their main camera angle was the kind of one that they'd use in the Masters, the Worlds, and the UK's, whereas the world feed was the shallower one that they use on Eurosport. And then the world feed was the Eurosport camera angles with the BBC commentary. And then the Eurosport had the studio in the arena, and BBC Wales had the one in the practice room. I just thought it was a bit of a weird setup. Like, it was as if it was kind of a bit half and half, if I'm being honest. It was a different production team to the usual BBC events as well. I don't know, I just thought it was a bit strange the way it was set up. I mean, if anybody else noticed that, feel free to let me know. But like, it was just weird. They had slots in where they would have ad breaks, where they usually like stops in between frames, whereas usually in the BBC, on the BBC events, Eurosport get in like 2 ads and then they're straight back in. So it was just weird the way it was set up. I mean, I'm sure Eurosport were delighted that they didn't have to do the production, essentially, that they could hand it off to the BBC, who did a great job. I mean, there was commentary on both tables. I was watching most of it on the iPlayer with a VPN, but I think I put on Discovery Plus at one point for one of the Table 2 matches, and they were actually using the BBC commentary, which was nice for people who couldn't watch it. I mean, I would have been watching it on Discovery Plus only for the fact that I had a VPN. And the BBC iPlayer at times was trying really hard not to let me watch it. I mean, I'd put on my VPN and then I'd go into Google, and it would be like, "Oh no, you're not in the UK." Anyway, they were trying their very hardest, but for a lot of it, I was watching it on the iPlayer. But yeah, it was a well produced event. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts that they talk about, at the event there wasn't enough merch, or at the event I thought that there could have been a better selection of herbal teas. But I, as someone who isn't living in the UK, who isn't going to all these events, I think that for most people who are watching snooker, they're watching it at home. They're not at the event. So I think that it's important to talk about the way that the coverage is produced. So yeah, that's kind of the angle that I like to take with it, because it's the only angle I can take with it, because I'm not watching the events live in the arena. But yeah, I really liked the part that they did on BBC Wales, where they sent Lee Walker around to all the different snooker clubs. I mean, I'd missed bits and pieces of it during the week. I'd missed a lot of it, actually. I think I'd only watched the Jackson Page one. But then when they had the 20 minutes when Luca Purcell needed to go off to take his meds and lie in a dark room, we got to see all of them. I thought it was absolutely superb. I really liked that. There's bits and pieces from both of the productions that I liked. I mean, I kind of, in some ways, preferred the Eurosport studio, whereas usually I'd prefer the BBC one, because they have Stephen Hendry, Steve Davis, who else, John Parrott, all those guys in with Hazel, who who I'm a really big fan of, and then they kind of have who else do they have? Seema Jaswell, they have Jason What's-His-Face as well. They're not as good, but I think that Ian Hunt is maybe better than some of those guys. I mean, I think that he might be my second favorite presenter. I mean, I really like I really like Shabnam Yunus Jewel. I think I might be a little bit biased there, just because she does a podcast, which I listen to it every now and again. There's a lot of snooker podcasts out there, and I'm not a fully regular listener to the Framed podcast, but I listen to a lot of the other ones. I was listening to Snooker Breakfast with Alan McManus all week. What else do I listen to? I listened to the Snooker Scene podcast. I listened to Sean Murphy's one. I listened to Snooker Hall with Dan Murren. I probably shouldn't be giving all these podcasts a shout out. Not that it's going to be taking much away from my little operation in my sitting room, but there's so many great snooker podcasts out there, and it's great to see one of the presenters of them, who started working in BBC, who's made her way up. She started off. I was about to say she started off doing whatever. I don't know what she started off doing, but she's a journalist. She's done the podcast, then she did a bit for BBC Sport News, and then she's just been moving her way up. She was doing a lot of interviews at the UK Champs, then she moved up to doing commentary work, then she did kind of half a session presenting. I thought that was a bit strange, the way that it was Hazel on BBC 2, and then they moved to BBC 4, and then they switched to Shabnam. I just thought it was weird the way they did it, but yeah. There's... What way was I going with this? Oh, yes. I'm after rambling on and on. So I preferred the Eurosport coverage, just because, it felt like they were all friends. They seemed quite close, whereas, the BBC Wales one, it's kind of like strung together. Like, you don't see Ian Hunt through any of the other tournaments. You don't see Darren Morgan. Rhiannon and Dominic are usually with Eurosport, so they'd kind of know each other. But Dominic is usually in the commentary box, and Rhiannon is usually in the studio. They don't really switch very much, if at all. So everyone there is they only do that one event together. It was great that Dennis Taylor and John Virgo were both together. We usually only get one of them, except for at the World Championships, so it was nice to see them together. And Ken Doherty, I love that guy. But yeah, I think that the commentary for the most part is better on the BBC, except for when Dave Hendon is on, because I love Dave Hendon. The studio coverage is usually better on the BBC, but this time around it was better on Eurosport. I think it's a shame that they only wheel out the studio when they're competing with the BBC Eurosport. I hope that once we start paying £31 a month, that's nearly €40, that we start getting a studio at least, because we're going to be getting onto that anyway, because Brian McGovern's written in. He wrote in this afternoon, or was it this morning? I can't remember. And he's spoken about that anyway, so we're going to be moving on to that shortly. But yeah, for the most part, I was watching on the iPlayer anyway. So that's the Welsh Open out the way. Now, the event coming up in a couple of days' time, I think it starts on the Sunday. I think I might have said Monday in the last episode, because Brian McGovern commented saying that it started on Sunday, so I must have said Monday on the last episode. But anyway, the World Open is coming up. It is the 6th edition of the World Open. It started in 2016. It had that hiatus for a while, didn't it? But it's back for a couple of seasons now. Judd Trump is the defending champion. We had a bit of qualifying before Christmas in Sheffield. And there were some big names in qualifying. I'm just going to take you through some of the names that you would have thought would have... In any other tournament, they would have been held over, except I've just picked out Jack Lazowski against Julian Leclerc, because I thought that was some match. Jack Lazowski, 5-3 winner over Julian Leclerc. But Barry Hawkins beat... I never know how to pronounce this guy's name. Cheng K. Wang, I think. The Hong Kong guy. There's only one other player from Hong Kong that I know of, which is Marco Fu. This guy, I say he's from Hong Kong. I don't know how to pronounce his name. We're going to go with Chuang Ka Wei. Si Hui. He is on an awful run of form. Who was it said it that I was listening to today? I think it was Dan Murren said that Si Hui he's in the World Grand Prix, but his 1 year ranking is being held up by a thread by the Saudi Arabia tournament, because he is on some shocking form. Really, he lost. Excuse me, sorry. He lost 5-0 to Zach Shorty just before Christmas. John Higgins beat Wang Yuchen. Oh, there's 2 players from Hong Kong. There's 3 total. Okay, Wang Yuchen. Anyway, 5-4. John Higgins won that one in a decider. Ali Carter beat Josh Thomond. He won that one 5-4. Luca Brissell 5-3 over Julian Boyko. I mean, that would have been some game as well. Why I didn't watch these qualifiers with such big names in it, I don't know. I mean, that would have been some game, even though Julian Boyko is playing under an amateur status. I mean, he's more than capable of being a professional player. Mark Williams lost. Oh my goodness. Mark Williams lost against Sonny Akani. Yes, of course, because Sonny Akani, I think, plays Aaron Hill on Monday or Sunday or Monday. So yeah, Mark Williams not in the tournament. Sean Murphy won 5-3 against Mustafa Dorgum. Mark Selby won 5-4 against Artemis Sissons. Really awful week for Artemis Sissons, if you remember the incident he had with Matthew Melt, which I'm not going to go over again. And Mark Allen beat Rory Thor 5-4. Big fan of Rory Thor, so disappointed to see that. But of course, Mark Allen, with his class, was always going to win that one, really. Just going to go through the prize money. So the winner gets £175,000 and ranking points for this event. The runner-up gets 75 grand, which, I mean, for losing this match, or this final, you almost get the same as for winning the Welsh Open. Semi-finalists get 33 grand, quarter-finalists 22, last 16 14, last 32 9, and everybody who's made it to the event except for the held over matches get 5 grand, and there is a 5 grand high break prize. Now, there's been a few matches who have been held over, so all these guys are actually playing just to get any ranking points at all. So Judd Trump against Jing Zibao of China. Ding Junhui, they held over his match against Zhang Jun. Now, there are 4 wild cards that are going to be in this event, and they are going to be playing Sanderson Lam, David Lilly, Scott Donaldson, and Zhu Se. So there's 4 wild cards, and each one of them will be playing against one of those players. They also held over Ronnie's game, if he plays, against Stuart Carrington. Shang Anda his match was held over. He is the second highest ranked Chinese player. I assume that's why they held him over. He's going to be playing Stan Moody. I mean, before I even realised that was a held over game, I had that in my matches to watch, because that is some game. I mean, I'm definitely going to be watching that if we're able to watch it. And the world champion and world number 2 is going to be playing against Hamid Mia. Now, some of the matches that I've picked out to watch this week are Ricky Walden against Ryan Day. Now, for the longest time, I got the 2 of these guys mixed up all of the time. But they're going to be playing against each other. Excuse me. I had that match down twice. I thought I had another match down there. Maybe I did and it's gone. Anyway, Aaron Hill, who we all know I love and adore. He's going to be playing against Thailand's Sonny Akani. Now, I was a big fan of Sonny Akani back in the day. Back in, I suppose, one of my main memories of him would have been probably back in the old UK Championship days where they had the 8 tables and all that crack. He's the guy who uses the rest weird. Not weird, it's practical. He always has the big long extension on, and he just plays it like it's a regular shot. He gets down on it. He puts his bridge hand out like it would be out, but over the rest, holding it down. and then he just uses his normal backspin using the rest. I mean, I don't know why more players don't do it. I don't know why I don't do it. But yeah, he's going to be playing against Aaron Hill. And Ronnie O'Sullivan against Stuart Carrington. I just have that match down, just because, just to see whether he plays, essentially. Whether we're going to tune in. And, I mean, I don't know who they can even top it up with, because it is a held over match, so he can be replaced, but they're going to have to find someone in a snooker club in China, I'd say, because if he pulls out, he is going to be pulling out last second. But I mean, if he makes it, I'm going to be watching, because he hasn't played since the Championship League just after Christmas, where he smashed up his cue, so he's going to have a new cue as well. But yeah, he's been a bit all over the shop over the last couple of weeks. Apparently he went to Clondudno. Yeah, apparently he went up on the Monday. He got up on Tuesday and he was like, I can't do this, and he drove home. So apparently he was in Clondudno, but he left. So yeah. So yeah, that's all I have on the World Open. Other than it's going to be on Eurosport in Europe all week. It's going to be on Eurosport and Discovery Plus in Ireland and the UK until Friday, and then on Saturday it's going to be on TNT Sports, because Eurosport will be no more from Saturday, I think. I will double check that. Eurosport shut down date. I'll just double check that, because 28th of February, so that would be 10 days from now. It would be 28. Yeah, that's the Friday. So it shuts down Friday week, and yeah, that will be the end of Eurosport, which is sad. But hey, that's the way life goes. So yeah, that's all I have on the World Open. Now, I'm just going to read you through the World Grand Prix draw. I'm not going to make any predictions or anything. Just, it came out I think it came out yesterday, as you're going to be listening to this. I suppose it is technically yesterday. It is 10 to 1 in the morning. But yeah. So, Judd Trump is going to be playing against Gary Wilson. Jack Lisowski is going to be playing against Zhang Anda. Si Hui against Ronnie O'Sullivan, if he turns up. Ding Junhui against Xu Se, Mark Williams against Stuart Bingham, Wu Yuze against Pang Junzhu, Mark Allen against Jimmy Robertson, Mark Selby against Jackson Page, Xiao Gudong against Jack Jones, Lei Pei Fan against Elliot Slesser, Chris Wakelin against Dave Gilbert, Neil Robertson against Yuan Xijun, Tom Ford against Barry Hawkins, Sean Murphy against Stephen Maguire, John Higgins against Ali Carter, and Kyron Wilson against Matthew Melt. So yeah, there's some cracking games in there. I mean, yeah, that's gonna be on in Hong Kong in a couple of weeks' time. Again, I've not prepared. I'm gonna tell you the dates that's gonna be on. So that is gonna be from the 4th to the 9th of March. So it's a short enough event. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Yeah, that's only 6 days. So yeah, that's going to be held in Hong Kong. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a great tournament. This tournament, that's only been running since 2015, but it's been huge names winning it every year. So I mean, it's going to be some event. But yeah, I'll do a bit of a deeper dive into that in a couple of weeks when it's time to roll on to Hong Kong. Right. So the bulk of this episode is going to be made up by Martin Gould. Now, I got a notification from Reddit earlier of just somebody asking, where is Martin Gould gone? And you know, I was like, oh yeah, what did happen to Martin Gould? So I'm just gonna have a look through. Which I just did a bit of an investigation earlier on today into where, in the name of God, he is gone. So I've just pulled up the Reddit post that made me go and have a look, and it simply says it's from Cyber Heater. I don't know. Anyway, he says, what happened to Martin Gould? he was a phenomenal player on his day and could beat anyone. Still some of the best long potting I've ever seen. And in the thread, somebody actually linked a clearance that he made at the World Champs against Ding Junhui, and I mean, what a clearance! Like, honest to God, like that was one of the greatest clearances I've ever seen. If I remember, I'll link it inside in the description of the show or whatever it's called. So Martin Gould hasn't played at all this season. He got a medical extension to his card because he should have dropped off last season, but he had to pull out of so many events. I mean, but before I tell you about all of that, I mean, just some of his career has been amazing by a lot of people's standards. I mean, he won the shootout in 2013. He won the 2016 German Masters. He beat Luca Bracel there 9-5, and I mean, like, we know what Luca Bracel went on to do, and he won the 2019 Championship League. But he hadn't played in quite a while. He just in terms of last season, the only match he beat James Cahill 5-4 in the German Masters qualifying, and he won a couple of matches in other qualifiers in UK Champs and Scottish. But other than that, he didn't really win very much last season, and he was plagued really by injury. But I'll just read out the statement. This is from April 13th, 2024, so 111 days ago. And the WPBSA said, following Martin Gould's withdrawal from the 2024 Kazoo World Snooker Championship, the WPBSA has considered the position in relation to his tour place. This is following an application for a medical exemption which was lodged with the WPBSA earlier this season. At a time Martin Gould was forced to withdraw from several major ranking events due to injury. Having considered all the facts, the WPBSA, in consultation with World Snooker Tour, has now offered Martin a 12-month extension to his tour place. Martin will retain his current earned prize money points, and this decision will not affect other current tour players. The WPBSA players and WST wish Martin all the best and look forward to seeing him back competing next season. Well, they look forward to it, but it hasn't happened because he hasn't played at all this season. I'll take you through last season just to give you a flavour of what's been happening. So he played 3 matches at Championship League ranking. He drew 2 of them with Alex Erstenbacher and Roy McLeod, and he lost against Zhao Guodong out of that tournament. Then European Masters, he lost 5-1. European Masters qualifying, he lost 5-1 to John Higgins. British Open qualifying, he lost 4-2 to Wu Yiza. English Open, he qualified for that, 4-2 against John Astley. English Open, then he lost 4-1 against Oliver Lyons. Northern Ireland, he didn't qualify. Scottish, he qualified against Rhian Evans. UK Championship, he came in the second round there, and he won 6-0 against Stuart Carrington, and then lost 6-3 to Fan Jingyi. And then he had to pull out of Scotland. He played in German Masters qualifying. He beat James Cahill 5-4, as I said, but then he had to pull out against John Higgins, and he had to pull out of the World Championships. So he hasn't played a match since German Masters qualifying in December 2023. He just kind of disappeared, and it's because of this. Now, I mean, he was such a good player, as I say, with all the tournaments that he won. So the last tournament where he won 2 or more matches was the 2023 WST Classic. Remember that event that had to be put on because the sponsors pulled out of the Turkish Masters? That was played in the Mattioli Arena, I think. In that tournament, he beat Andrew Higginson and Anthony McGill, and then he lost to Stuart Bingham. And his last quarter-final was in 2022, where he beat David Grace 5-4 in the first round, Jack Lazowski 5-4 in the second round. Lu Ning, a man who none of us like very much for reasons that I'm sure most of you know, but he was one of the ringleaders in the match fixing, and then he lost to the eventual finalist Matt Self 5-3. This guy could play snooker for. I mean, most of you surely remember him, but he was one of my favourite players. I mean, I know I said that about a lot of players, but he was, honestly, I used to love watching him. There was a guy. It's gonna sound so stupid, but there was a guy who. My mother didn't used to drive. She only learned how to drive a little while ago. We used to do the shopping in Tesco, and we used to wait outside for a taxi, and every now and again we just wait out there, and there'd just be another guy sitting on the bench, sometimes sitting on the bench, sometimes standing up near the trolleys, and for ages I was convinced it was Martin Gould. I was like, what, 8, 9? I was absolutely wholeheartedly convinced it was Martin Gould. But then, of course, I said it to my mother at one point, and she was like, why would Martin Gould be doing his shopping in Tesco in Ireland? I was like, oh yeah. But for ages I was convinced that Martin Gould did his shopping in Tesco in Kerry. I mean, fuck. Anyway, so yeah, I've loved this guy for ages, and I mean, I kind of forgotten about him, to be honest, until I saw that post on Reddit earlier on. But yeah, I just thought, it's sad. It is. It's sad that Martin Gould has gone through all of these things. I know he's gone through depression in the past, and he's had, I think it's a back injury that he's gone through, that he's had to pull out of so many events and basically not play for coming on a year and a half. A year and a quarter at least. But yeah, it is sad. His eyesight was deteriorating as well, I think. But what a player! Honestly, what a player! I mean, I obviously I hadn't been thinking about him too much because I didn't even realize that he wasn't playing anymore. But what a guy! He's still on the world rankings because he did get that that tour card extension. I'll have a look. He's very low down. But yeah, we'll have a look at the rankings. He's near enough at the bottom. I think he's like 110 or something. The world rankings. Go through all these pages. He's on the second page from the bottom. He's on world ranked 107, 19,500 ranking points. Yeah. Oh god. Just having a look here. Julien Leclerc is going to fall off tour. That's sad. He's all the way down near the bottom. So is Ben Martins. He's number 92. Who's near the cutoff? Actually, I know this is not great podcasting, but it's the top 64 that make it through. So, number 65 is David Grace. 66, Joe Perry. I don't think he'll be too disappointed. Ishpreet Singh Chadha. Let's hope he gets through because we like him. As well as Stan Moody. They're both down near the bottom. Marco Fu 68. Stan Moody 69. Ashley Carty 70. Louis Heathcote 71. Qian Peng Fei 72. Ma Hailong 73. Shang Jun 74. Ross Muir 75. And I don't think there's much hope for. Oh no! Rory Thor down at number 76. But yeah, I don't think anybody from there down is staying on. Michael Holt, Ollie Lyons, Alex Ursenbacher, who else? Jimmy White. I think he's on the first for 2-year card anyway, so he should be okay. But yeah, there's a lot of players that look like they're gonna fall off at the end of the season there. Right. One more thing to get on to, and that is Brian McGovern. Thank you very much for emailing in, Brian. He says, "Hi Fionn, enjoying the podcast. On the above podcast, he has the the email titled episode 9, so I assume that's what you mean. He says, on the above podcast you mentioned about WST not being available on Discovery Plus in Ireland. I'm quite annoyed over that, as one of the things I won't be able to watch is the World Championship qualifiers, and would miss the Judgment Days unless they show Judgment Day. Well, as far as I'm aware, they're still going to be showing them on YouTube. But I mean, if I'm sure, as an avid snooker fan as you are, you have, what should we call it? You have, what? WST Play. There we go. I'm sure you probably do have WST Play, and I mean, it's worth the investment just for the old matches if you don't have it. But there is a VPN called BrowseX VPN. If you have a PC, you can just turn it on and you can change the location to somewhere that doesn't, Singapore. Change to Singapore. Then for the £5 a month, then just search up wst.tv/videos, log in, and you can watch the qualifiers there. I mean, that's what I pay for VPN, because that VPN, I'm not sure if it's available on the phone. It's definitely not available on Fire Stick or anything, or on Fire TV, so or on any kind of smart TV. So that's what I was using for a while to watch BBC coverage on my laptop. But yeah, BrowseX VPN and WST Play, that should get you in. Do Singapore have a broadcaster? I don't think so. Because there's only a few actual countries you can set it to without paying. Do Singapore have a broadcaster? Let me find one of the articles. But I'm pretty sure they don't. Anyway, there's plenty of countries there anyway that you can have a look at. The list of countries on BrowseX VPN. Let me have a look. I know this doesn't apply to most of the people listening to this, so I'm sorry. You have France, the Netherlands, Singapore, the UK, and the USA are the ones that you can use without paying. So yeah, so that should be useful for you, hopefully, if you do want to have a look at that in the future. But yeah, they should be showing that on YouTube anyway. It would be a great shame if they didn't. Anyway, Brian continues. As you know, ITVX isn't available in Ireland either. It is like people in Ireland are being given the short straw. I've sent in an email to Dave Hendon to see what he says about it. I mean, I was going to do that as well, because although he probably isn't going to make any comments on it, because he realistically has a stake in it. So it's probably not the best idea for him to comment on it. But it should be brought up nonetheless, because it is a pretty big issue that, like, one of the biggest markets for snooker is losing out so heavily. But yeah, on the ITVX thing as well, yeah, that is, it's not nice, really. The VPN comes in and saves me, essentially. I pay for Express VPN. It's like £13 a month. It's hefty, but it comes in clutch for things like ITVX, for the BBC, and for different bits and bobs that I use it for. It's just, if WST Play had come out maybe 6 months earlier, I don't think I'd even still have Discovery Plus. I'd just be using that VPN to get into WST Play, because I mean, it's a great service. It's essentially the same thing, except because Eurosport don't have a studio for anything that BBC that isn't shown by BBC. So I mean, it's all basically the same thing on WST Play, except for a couple of graphics. But yeah, he says keep up the good work. So thank you very much, Brian. Yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing, really. If they aren't showing more than one table on TNT Sports while people are playing 30 whatever pounds a month, it's I mean, for us, then we're going to be stuck with just the one table. I mean, there's often the better game is on table 2 anyway, I find, for the most part. But anyway, I think I'll be watching a lot of my snooker on WST Play with a VPN now. But hey ho, Yes, that looks like it's it for the podcast. If you, like Brian, have anything you'd like to say, don't be afraid to email in. cuethechat@gmail.com. We're also on TikTok, Instagram. We're on Facebook, I think, but I don't check Facebook very much. So if you send me a message on Facebook, it might be 6 months before I see it. But Instagram is probably your best bet for social media if you want me to see it. Yeah. So, we're on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I'd probably be the most likely to be able to see it would probably be Instagram, then Twitter, just because I get notifications for both of those. Then I log into the TikTok sometimes, and then the Facebook, I don't even know if we have one, to be honest. That's how regularly I check it, if we do. So yeah, get any views or anything you want in. We'll be back. When will we be back? We'll be back in a while. We didn't go through one of our top players in this episode because we went through Martin Gould, so I might come back with a bumper review. With a bumper season review episode, but I don't want to commit to that because it probably won't happen anyway. Yeah, enjoy the World Open if I don't come back before then, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Adios.